Cynthia.
Hi, Natalie. Welcome
Well, you're the
in.
first one here, so you get to pick which seat you want.
How are you, Nick?
Good.
Good. We're
Good as
happy
you
to
can
have
be.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me.
On a scale of 1 to 10, are you nervous to do this? Excited to do this?
No, I think the nerves are through and past. Yeah, it was a wild ride. I mean, it's been some time,
It
so
seemed wild.
I think that we're all in different places now.
Well, here we get to finally set the record straight.
We will dig into it.
Mm.
I can hear it.
I don't know what to expect. I'm excited.
I mean, I didn't know what to expect either.
Well, I'm glad you're here, man.
Me too.
And I'm glad you're doing better.
It'd be hard to be doing worse, I suppose, than that experience for sure.
Hi. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
You're going to be right by Nick.
You're right there.
Hi,
how are you?
Hi. So good to meet you.
So
I'm a
excited.
big fan. I love you guys. I've been listening to your podcast for years.
We love that.
Yay. Well, that's good.
Document this hug.
Yeah, that's what I know.
We're going to be fighting soon. I'm kidding.
I know. You hate me. I don't blame you.
No. We don't hate you. We don't love everything we
It's okay.
saw
Neither
on a
do
edited
I.
show. So
No,
like,
it's okay. Neither do I, guys. I do not blame y'all. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good to see you.
I know. Good to see you. You okay?
okay.
Thanks.
Oh, all saints. I like it.
He dressed up for the occasion.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Nick and Sandy reunite.
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your guys' anxiety level right now?
Before this, it was a 10. Right now, I feel actually pretty calm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could have been worse.
I feel like it's a good energy in here, and it's nice being, seeing Nick. So I feel pretty calm right now. We'll see in
Okay.
like 5 minutes.
Okay. when we dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think being with humans
Yeah.
is a lot easier than being with social media.
How have you been handling?
How's our heart?
Yeah, how is your heart? Yeah. Thank you, Sandy. She's trying to get brownie points before we really get started.
No, I was like waiting for you to
truly,
ask that.
yeah. Why didn't you ask
Yeah.
that?
We haven't really asked it a ton lately. But how
Yeah.
is your heart?
It's been better. It's been better for sure.
How's your heart, Nick?
It's a struggle to go through what we went through and then have so many opinions get thrown around that, are not based on true life interactions with either of us. And
What do you mean by true life interactions?
I think that, the show gives a perspective on a moment in time that we were dealing with, which was tremendously difficult. And as far as my social media experience prior to this, it was pretty much purely based on work. It wasn't personal.
Yeah.
So I never opened my phone to people making comments about myself or Sandy or any of the other people that went through this with us. So it's challenging to not take it personally and kind of ground yourself through, the fact that this is through a lens that other people are witnessing, and just try to stay truthful with what we know to be. And
Are you staying offline though, or are you actually going on and seeing what people think?
I would say that in the beginning, I was definitely paying a little bit more attention, and I recognized for my mental sanity
yeah.
that, it's not.
I can
necessarily
imagine it
something.
must also be hard because it's like the one person that you would talk to, who went through this with you and who knows you're
good
broken
point.
up. So it's
Yeah.
like you can't really talk to that person. So it's like there is no really safe space.
When did you guys film the reunion?
About a month ago.
About a month ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the last time you guys saw each other in person?
Last time I saw him in person. But I will say we've actually been like good supports for each other through all of this. Like Nick and I, we would not be sitting here together if we didn't still like care about each other and love each other as humans. And so to your point, Natalie, I actually we have leaned on each other through this because it's so weird. I mean, you've been on reality shows, like people don't understand unless you've gone through it, and then throw in our real life relationship, real life issues that we truly struggled with. And now they're just like all over the TV for the entire world to judge. It's a really weird thing to go through, and it's hard. But I do think that we've shown up for each other throughout this process, as best as we can, because we are broken up.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, even though we're broken up, I still have so much care and gratitude for the experiences we had prior to the show. And there's a reason we were so connected on so many levels. And
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm in a bit of a, I don't want to see or hear anything negative towards her. I mean, she had her experience.
Yeah.
I had my experience, but for me, I feel very protective of her when it comes to people saying things that are way outside of who her actual character is. It doesn't feel good for me. You know, I think that what a lot of people are seeing is the end of a real relationship. And, you know, the experience provided a rapid departure for the relationship. And it wasn't the healthiest way for us to move apart, but
well, I don't know if there's any healthy way to break up. Certainly went out with a bang. You know, there's that. What is both of yours one biggest regret in terms of your conduct on the show, without blaming editing, without just like something that you watched back and you were like, did not love that I did that. I wish I would have done that differently.
I can only pick one.
You can pick multiple, but I'd love to.
I'm like, there's lots.
Well, it's just like we have a lot of questions, a lot of things we want to cover,
100%.
but I am curious, you know, before we like lay in or just be like, why the fuck did you guys do this? I'm just curious off the bat if it was more like, I definitely did not love how I handled myself that way.
More of this, less of what the other stuff I was drinking.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, it's pretty clear, I think.
It wasn't clear, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Were you drinking a lot of alcohol?
Yeah, I wasn't sleeping. You know, I was having a very difficult time being in my apartment. And it just kind of tallied up. And I was far more emotionally volatile or reactive than I would ever want to show up for somebody that I care for. No matter how crazy the experience was, I don't feel that I showed up with my true authentic self. And I think that's hard to digest in any scenario, especially when you have to watch it on.
Is that
television.
something you struggled with beforehand, or did kind of, you know, it help you through the show?
So I've had my ebbs and flows with it. I think that I recognized through the experience that I needed to take a harder look at it.
Okay.
It had been something that came up in our relationship prior, and that I would go, you know, I would sometimes feel like I had it together, and then sometimes I would dip back into it. And I don't think that I was getting the kind of mental health support and system, and I wasn't putting the right structure in place for me to not use, you know, things to escape.
Well, I mean, when it comes to doing reality TV, if you go into that experience using any substance as a coping mechanism, chances are that will only increase, not decrease, because those spaces, they don't have support systems. It's all about putting you on an emotional island and seeing how you react. You know, that's kind of what all these experiments are. So there is that. What about you?
You know, there's a lot. Like, I normally am not the type of person that's like, oh, I regret something, because there are learning lessons through everything, truly. And there have been a lot of learning lessons through this, but I can't lie when I say like there's a lot of things that I would just do differently. Truly. I think if I can pinpoint one of them, it would probably just be my overall like attitude and kind of my frustrations that I was holding on to towards Nick through the process, and just like me not really considering what he was going through. Because it's very clear to everybody else, of course. It's very, you know.
It did seem like you lacked the appropriate amount of empathy.
Right. And I see that now. And in the moment, you guys, like, it's so hard to see other people's experience, because it's so intense for yourself. And it was really, really intense. And there's a lot of things that happen that we don't see in regards to me and Nick and kind of what we're talking about here, that made it just worse and worse and worse. And yeah, I mean, I think it just got out of hand, but that's definitely something for me, because I care about this man so much, and our love has never been the issue. Like, it's never been a problem for us. And it really is hard for me to watch, because it just looks like I don't give a shit, you know? When really I was just hurting myself.
I mean, are you able to elaborate, Nick? Just because, be honest, I felt like, I don't know, were you protected by the edit or not, but watching it back, I mean, as a viewer, it was like, why is Nick apologizing constantly to this woman?
Yeah.
And why is, for what appeared to be no reason.
I agreed to do this experience. It's right. Like, I signed up. I signed on the dotted line for us to break up. We were in a place where I think this actually, had it been a healthier setting for both of us, we would have gotten a healthier answer, but probably would have arrived at the same point. I think we were trying to find the next thing to either bring us absolutely together forever or break up. And I went into it, I would say, maybe a little flippant and arrogant that it would be fun. And, we would kind of laugh about the experience and come back in this loving, oh my God, I missed you. And how could we do this? And obviously that didn't go down the way that I thought. And so I spun out. I was very emotional, and being alone through that, I was basically, I would say I was contacting Sandy to the point where it had to be uncomfortable for her to be dealing with that. I was not in a grounded place.
Yeah.
I was texting and calling incessantly and not knowing what to do. Would I look back now? Should I have left? Maybe so at that point. I was committed to trying to get through the pain to experience our time together. And I look at it and see
did you say anything like crazy? I'm watching it and being like, I consider myself to be pretty chill and not jealous, and I'm very emotionally regulated. But if like my girlfriend was, living above me with another dude, and again, I'd love your commentary, but it seemingly looked like you were being dismissed constantly. I don't know how I would handle it if my girlfriend was telling me to fuck off. It just seemed like that.
There's just so much that you guys that nobody sees. Obviously,
what are we not seeing?
So I was essentially an absent boyfriend moving into the show, right? I was unsure about if she was gonna be able to meet me where I wanted to go, and that's probably not Sandy was in a position in her life where she's excited about LA, kind of culture, like she's immersed in a culture that I've kind of been a part of for a long time and was trying to pull back from. And I think I've said this multiple times, but we arrived at the same destination at different times. And I think that I was pretty cut off from what she needed from me emotionally moving into the show.
How'd you guys end up on the show? Because that's another thing that was like hard to watch. Because there was a lot of like you being like, you brought me here.
Right. He wanted to do it.
Okay. Did you not want to?
I was open to doing it, but I originally said no.
Okay.
I got reached out to and I declined. I was like, that's not something that I want to do. Our relationship is not that serious to go into like a marriage proposal. And because we were very off and on in our relationship.
Okay.
And I think that's something to note. Him and I had not been dating for 2.5 years. We had known each other for 2.5 years. And we had been actually dating for about 9 months before going on the ultimatum. And within those 9 months, we had broken up maybe 5-6 times.
There's context we did not know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very different than being in a solid 2.5 year committed relationship. It's very true. But we had this love that was undeniable. And we had loved each other. We had said we loved each other before we even actually started dating. So we did love each other for like maybe 2 years or so, but it was very, off and on. But yeah, we obviously both agreed to it. And yeah, there were moments where I was just like frustrated where, I'm like, you wanted to do this. I think that frustration was more so stemming from the overall like attitude that we both kind of had, but mostly him had moving into it, was so like unbothered, we were very silly and playful about it. It was not like this serious, somber thing where we're like, oh my God, like we're gonna break up. Like he was really chill about it. And almost to the point where it was like a little bit bothering to me because I'm like, okay, does this not like freak you out? I just had felt pretty like taken for granted in the relationship. And so then I think moving into it, the reason why I'm like, what's going on is because all of a sudden it switched, because it got real, because we didn't know how intense it was going to be. And I think his real heart and like feelings for me showed up like the second we got there. But you guys have to understand, before we got there, it was not like that. But that wasn't because he didn't love me or actually want to be with me. It was just because he was running from his own things or whatnot. So it was like you were avoidant in the relationship. And I moved into the experience with that like all over me. And then I was just like, wait, why is this all of a sudden flipped, now that we're here?
No, I can totally see
Yeah.
your confusion on that end of, I mean, you said multiple times you felt neglected in the
Yeah.
relationship. And then, I get your point where it's like now you see her with another man and you're like, hold on, what the fuck? I want you. I love you. You always want what you can't have. Why was there so many breakups in your relationship before coming on the ultimatum?
I think it has to do with some of the kind of the emotional turmoil or whatnot that Nick had been going through. And obviously, like, you can speak more to it. But there was just a lot of like instability, I think, in terms of like the surface level of our dynamic in our lifestyle and our relationship. But in terms of like underneath that, our actual connection and love for each other, we always like would find a way back to each other because we really do love each other.
So, yeah, I think that's something that wasn't shown a lot of is Sandy and I started as very, very good friends. And we did have a physical connection, but she had come out of a relationship. I was very much ready to commit. I had been at a point in my life with her where we had been dating, but I was ready and she wasn't. And she was very honest about that. But I had to essentially say at this point, like, I can't continue to be physical with you anymore because I'm not getting the emotional side of you that I'm yearning for. And
he kind of gave me like a mini ultimatum.
Yeah.
Like,
and
exactly.
I did. And then I started to see somebody else and she came
Wow. You and I are the same, Nick.
full twist and said, I recognize that I love you. I recognize that I want to be in a relationship with you. I am here to commit. That relationship that I was in was very easy to depart from. And we then made a commitment to each other. We'd always had a lot of fun together. We had a lot of good stuff going.
We had a really beautiful relationship.
I think if you look at the cadence of it, me having that, need for it kind of came full circle for both of us. Cause I had the initial, like, I can't do this. You're not getting me what you need. And maybe I was carrying resentment from that I didn't acknowledge. I think that I was, I don't really feel like I'm a jealous person. So when she would go out and go to events or parties or whatnot, I would just, have a good time, like, see you later, see you when you get home. It wasn't something that I really wanted to be involved in. But I did feel when I got to the show that thing that I guess, listen, I'm sure at some point in my life I've been cheated on. I don't know. I'm not for certain, but I can just tell, like, I don't know that feeling because I've never specifically seen or felt what it felt like. And that emotion is really intense. And to see her with JR so quickly have a connection and have it be like it was obvious that even though there were other people attracted to her and other people that wanted her attention, they were magnets. And I was very aware of that from day one.
We were too.
Yeah. And that was a more difficult thing to digest than I could have ever anticipated.
Going into the experience, did you guys discuss any like rules or boundaries in terms of like how you guys are planned on kind of, you didn't know? None?
No.
I trusted that there wouldn't be like beyond a certain level, but I was also understanding that we were going to be dating other people and that, I may have a connection. She may have a connection. She had asked me one point if, about sex. I said no. So we kind of knew that was off limits.
What do you mean? How'd you ask it? Where you're like, can we fuck?
No, we just were we actually didn't have very many conversations about the experience or the show leading up to it in general, which I think was our problem.
That's crazy.
We went into it very like, whatever, we kind of winged it. And I will say, like, I tried to have a lot of conversations with you that you didn't want to have, but we did have the conversation around boundaries. And we basically said, like, yeah, no boundaries. I mean,
you asked me specifically if I was bringing condoms.
Yeah, it was like if you were going to have sex with
anyone. I said absolutely not.
Yeah. And so that was clear as day. Like, okay, cool. We don't have to worry about that. But we were open to doing the experiment, like kissing or whatnot. That wasn't, me and Nick have had a very like open mind. We're really open-minded humans. And so that wasn't a crazy concept. It just didn't turn out the way that we
it was
had
more,
thought.
I guess it was less about, because you're right. Because like, who knows? I mean, sex, who knows? For certain couples, might not need anything. It was more like, I was just surprised, not only just you guys, but just all the couples. It seemed like not a lot of couples had a conversation about like, how can we make sure the other person feels respected in this
Right.
process, because it definitely doesn't feel like you guys had that conversation about how do we make the other person
Right.
feel respected in this process, given that regardless if it's sex or making out or cut, because if we think about the sex, what we watched felt like a lot of disrespect in
Right.
both directions between the two of you. And I think that was the most shocking thing for me to watch as a viewer, where it was like, all these couples kind of fucking hate each other. Because like, for a concept of like, you know, a premise of, and again, I appreciate the context you guys offer, that maybe you guys weren't as rock solid as we were led to believe
No, we
going
were
in.
not.
But yeah, it was just more like the lack of respect, you know, regardless of what your guys' individual boundaries or comfort levels with sex
Totally.
or dating or
Yeah.
whatever. It just,
Yeah.
I was shocked by JR's ability to act like he owned you in front of Nick, and where that confidence level
right.
came
Right.
from, and your seeming support of that behavior around Nick.
I think being there, like we, you don't have boundaries, whatnot. And okay, you're in these types of experiences. There's obviously, there's kind of rules that they have. I don't know if they have that with Bachelor or not, but like with this, it's like, okay, you guys are broken up. There's no boundaries, whatnot. And so I think I was really trying to take it for what it was, like the whole process and experience, and like really dive into all of it. And I think with that, I was kind of like delusional a little bit, like not really able to actually see what was going on. And I just had so much resentment. I was like, you wanted to do this and now we're doing it and now you're upset.
Did you have to convince her to do it?
No.
I mean, no, but he wanted to do it. He was all on board.
Did
and
you not want to do it?
I didn't want to do it at first. And then we
But
went through the process and I was very
Never
like,
had.
if it happens, it happens. Like, fine, whatever. But it's
That was not you. That was not discussed that you didn't want to do that.
No,
Between
I
you
had-
and I. You may have had your own reservations off.
I had said no. I
but
have
not-
messages
not
of me literally
when
rejecting
you
and
brought
saying
it
no,
to
thank
me.
you.
You know, like I didn't know that you didn't want to do it. If I knew that you
I
didn't
brought
want
it
to do
to
it,
you saying that somebody reached out to me and I was like, this is obviously like, this is not something that we're going to do. And you wanted to do it. And yes, we all like, we went through the process and it happened. And I'm not saying like that I didn't want to do it. I'm just was more so holding kind of resentment because of your overall, like, just kind of the attitude moving into it where you're like, oh, I can't wait to have all my sexy girlfriends and this and that and da 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 da. Like, you better watch out. It was like very, very playful and joking to the point where I was like, okay, damn. And then we got there and I think I was playing into it too. And then then it got way too serious. But I do
I
genuinely
think
like,
taking sarcasm out of context for a very like serious conversation is a little risky, but I can hear what you're saying. And I think that we were trying to make light of it together,
Yeah,
as
we
we always
were.
did when we had fun conversations.
yeah,
And I think if you went into this with, a hard nose into the wall and trying to like, there wouldn't be a reason. I did want it to be a fun experience for us. You're a absolutely gorgeous human being. And like, you are going to have the attention of men, no matter if you're with me or with somebody else. So jealousy is not best served in my situation with or without the show. Like,
What do you mean by that?
that she's gorgeous. She's going to get attention from men no matter what.
What's that have to? What do you mean by that? though?
So like me being open about it, it doesn't do me any good to try to feed into the idea that I would become jealous. I was just trying to be open-minded that she would have a connection on the show, that I would have a connection on the show. We'd learn about
Right.
ourselves through it, and then we get back together and work on the things that we both wanted to have and see where that would end up. The thing is, we did a lot of that. And we did do a lot of work together after, even with our time together.
Mhm.
And even after all the drama and the madness and the things with JR and whatnot, we were able to come together as a couple again and
Mhm.
have some breakthroughs, because we recognized that there were some very deep wounds that we triggered in each other and weren't showing up for each other in specific ways. I wasn't holding space in certain ways. She wasn't holding space in certain ways. And we had conversations that I was hopeful to have to move forward. Unfortunately, at that point, the relationship had run its course. And I think that at the very least, I can look back and have I wouldn't say it's my heart is full that we had those conversations, because I had to still deal with all the stuff before, but I am glad at the very least that if there was any reason for me to stay, it was to have those chats, which nobody sees. That's
Yeah,
not
right.
in.
I mean, I
and
get
we're-
why
and
you
we're having
wanted
them
to
now.
make it to the part where you get
Yeah.
back together with your
Right.
girlfriend, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I think a scene part that was very hard for me to watch was when you came to the door, banging on the door. And it was like you could hear a broken man who you've known for 2.5 years,
Right.
off and on. And it was, you sent JR to the door to answer it and to deal with it. Was that for any particular reason?
So yeah, that is definitely that was a big night. And we're seeing most of none of it. And what we're seeing is like, I mean, that's not exactly like how it went down.
I had a like of all the times I was having a hard time, that day was the hardest. So and I'm not like, I have to keep some privacy to my life, but something happened that day and it was not to do with our relationship. And it was a very, very heavy, like extremely somebody in my life who I've known for 13 years and has been one of the closest people in my life did me this show is nothing compared to how, and I mean like,
and you wanted to talk about it with
and
Sandy? Or
I
you
had,
needed her?
I had a bad reaction to that. I went out. I did run into Carly and Lori. And I was in a bad way. And I don't think Sandy quite understood the volume of what was going on because I wasn't communicating. I was drunk and I was upset. And I was irate. I was irate at somebody else. Like, and it unfortunately came through like because she was already annoyed with me at that point about me continuing to reach out.
But it's not just like, I just want to make it clear. It's not just like, oh, he was reaching out to me, you guys. Like, oh, he was calling me and texting me. How dare I how dare my boyfriend call me? It's not what it is. Trust me, because that is, if he ever needed me and he came to me in a conscious, healthy way, just like, babe, I need you. I need to talk. I would drop everything and go across the country to go get you. And you know that. That's not what was happening. And it's not what we see, but it is a continued pattern and cycle of whatever's going on in there affects his behavior out here. And then you mix in alcohol, whatever, and you're not in, it's not a healthy state of mind. Like, so what was happening that night, he was irate for a lot of different reasons. Me, I'm sure being one of them, just the whole experience and everything. Like the fact that I'm living with another man and he's by himself. I mean, that alone is like torturous.
The proximity
100%.
was also,
it was honestly ridiculous. That shouldn't have happened. We honestly probably should have just left.
Y'all were living above you, Nick, right?
We were living above him, like very close corners.
I would imagine the point of the show is to trigger you guys.
Of course. And it triggered us to like the breaking point. You know what I mean?
I felt like that was a little.
It was just a lot.
And no one else was living in that close proximity.
We were in close corners.
I don't know how you sleep, so sleep deprivation, emotional feelings, alcohol. I was not in a good mental place. I think that's pretty clear.
When did you know they were living above you?
So I walked out to do we do our interviews, and it was one of the nights where Mariah, and it's funny because you see it on the edit as if I'm like trying to look into their door or something. And I walked out into the courtyard, looked up, and because we separated during that, Mariah and I were having a night where we were painting or doing something, and I walked out so she could do her interview. I walked out to the courtyard, sat down, I looked up, I saw JR, I was like, oh.
And you see me run inside because I didn't want him to have the visual of me and JR on the balcony together having dinner. I just didn't want him to have that visual. And I was like, there's no way that this is happening right now. So I ran inside because JR had told me that you were walking around. I just didn't want you to see us together.
At that point, sounds like things you make up. Like at that point, you're just going footsteps and time. It's like you start to make up things that
insane.
Are not true, and I don't believe are true because we've had some pretty definitive and honest conversations about that. And I think that I believe you and trust that those things did not occur. But I think that it felt that way very much. The volume of that was turned up full tilt in my head. And I was going to bed thinking about
what were you hearing?
In my head, I was hearing that I do think
you were hearing footsteps. And here's the thing. I moved back into the apartment that he was living in, and you could hear
what Nick's saying, but I get it. I think what
okay, whatever.
the noises in itself are far more removed from, and this is also something that I really need to, I feel like I need to address, is that they did have a very genuine connection. I don't think it
doesn't show, obviously.
and
It looks like we're like, "Bleh," like not talking about
I mean,
anything. And
what
Definitely look like you're into each other
yeah,
for
it
sure.
seemed like you guys were into each
So
other.
I wasn't
Yeah,
like,
it
that wasn't
doesn't-
something I was just making up in my head, that they were, it's like, she wasn't put off by him. She wasn't unattracted to him. They were leaning into each other from the jump, and you could see that from the start. So that's why the whole, like, when I found out that they kissed before they even moved in together, I'm like, well, if that's happening that fast, what's next? And now they're living above my head.
But it's
Like-
like you would hear a bird tweet and be like, "Oh my God, that's them kissing," type of thing. Like it was
Yeah.
just every noise you heard, you just went to the worst possible idea of what it could be.
Yeah, I'm a creative person, so I can create.
I think
things
anyone
that
in
are-
that situation would
Yeah,
go
I mean,
insane.
Totally.
I don't
artist.
think.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think.
I
you're-
mean, that's something that I could not understand in the moment. Like I look
Mhm.
back and I'm just like, girl, like come on, it's like so obvious. But I was
What's
so
obvious?
just like what Nick was going through, and just he was alone. I'm with JR, and it's like me and JR are super flirty, and like I could see that, and in the moment I couldn't, because I was so wrapped up in my own experience and the things that were happening with me and Nick before the show, during the show, was like overpowering everything. It had nothing to do with JR, honestly, and it had everything to do with me and Nick. And that's what you're seeing the night that he comes to the apartment. And it's not me being like, first of all, JR is the one that literally was like, no, you stay back. I'm getting this door, because Nick had been calling, like I had been sobbing on the phone to Nick that night for hours. You see one thing and hang up. That's a very, very tail end. And that's not even exactly how it happened. That is after like countless conversations of me begging him, like, hey, please, I'm not in a space to talk right now. Like, and he was not in the space to talk either. He wasn't respecting that. And obviously, like,
Oh, what do you mean he wasn't?
he wasn't in a mental, physical state to talk. He was very intoxicated. Like,
Okay.
if somebody's calling you, like,
Yeah.
and it's like,
I gotcha.
how that's going to go down.
Sure.
I know, because I've been down this road with him many times. I've seen him in that state many times before. And I've learned to just disengage when that's happening. Me engaging is not going to, it's not going to do us any good.
I don't think anybody is good when they drink. I don't think you've been your best self when you've drank. I don't think I'm your
Yeah,
best.
no,
I think
100%.
it's like we also have to take ownership of both sides, and I think that's what we've been doing, so
Yeah.
we can be clear about this and clean. And I also think it's still very like truthful that I was going through watching something, actually not even watching it at that point, feeling, and that's what I was actually I was concerned, because I thought that I was going to see the show and be like, wow, like you had nothing to worry about. And I don't think that's true. And I think that I did observe, especially from JR's side, him genuinely feeling for her and care for her. And he seems to be, he seemed to be throughout it very protective of you, and very much,
I think he knew what I was going through with you. Like he knew. I mean, of course, I was living with him. And so he would hear me, like, he knew I was going through it. I would be like really upset. And so that, I do think that he got kind of protective in a way, like in a weird way.
I guess, but why did he feel like it was his place?
that's not what I mean. He called you his wife.
Okay,
Yeah.
that he's not being serious. I know that it seems that way, but like obviously I'm not his wife.
Well, obviously. I'm just saying, and I don't think if we asked JR if he literally thought you were
No.
his wife, it was just more his attitude.
The attitude, of course.
In terms of like what he thought his place was.
right.
Like, again, I just kind of go back to, I imagine, what if Natalie and I did an experiment
Right.
like this, where it's just like, and listen, I think the show is fascinating. I love how what I love the show so much is like most shows are exploring like individuals pursuing love as opposed to people in your shoes
Right.
who examine like, relationships very much like your guys' are. I mean, your guys' relationship seems to be like this poster board toxic relationship, and I even almost mean that in a compliment way. Like, we've all been part of these relationships. Watching you guys is like a window into like my past life. Like, I think anyone who's watching this, if you look at not just your guys' relationship but a lot of these relationships, I mean, it's very easy to see, if you're honest with yourself, moments of your own vulnerability in these relationships. But it's more like again, to me, it comes down to like a respect in terms of I could lean into an experiment, but this is still my girlfriend going in, and for someone to jump in and assume a role, either, and I would believe either, because JR does seem a bit delusional, but either he's just assuming that's his role, or he feels like he's gotten permission to play that role.
I get it, and I think with there was disrespect. I mean, there was disrespect on my end, just not like comprehending the whole situation in itself and being like, okay, wait a minute, like, no, like that's my real life boyfriend. Like this is like this is a trial marriage. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that like don't talk to him that way. In terms of the night that he came to the apartment, though, it is very different. I do want to like say that it was like things kept happening, and I think JR had just seen me so like broken down and upset over it that he was trying to step in, but I don't know. It was a very weird
like,
thing.
Why didn't JR at any point just be like, just go talk to your guy? Like,
well,
this is
what
getting
had
weird.
happened was Nick had told me like, I'm coming to the apartment, and I was like, no, you're not. Like, you will not come to this apartment right now. I don't want to talk to you. This is not a healthy dynamic. You're not in the right mental, physical, or emotional state that this is not going to go well if we talk. And he came to the door, and JR was like, you're staying back there. I'm going to the door, because JR was pissed because he lives there. And I was like, this is not actually happening right now. That's why I'm like so uncomfortable laughing, because I'm like, this is not real life right now. There's no way that like these men are about to go at it. And I'm like,
I get the discomfort.
It was so uncomfortable. And I have a really bad nervous laugh, like really bad, you guys. I always got in trouble growing up.
I would agree with that. And that can be very difficult in
It's
serious
horrible.
situations.
It's horrible. And there was nothing funny about that, by the way, like nothing. I was crying 2 seconds before that. And then I was more of like JR being like, no, you stand back. And like, he like ran to the door. I was like, this is not happening, But I just think that there was a lack of respect, and knowing what I know now in that moment, like I would have dropped everything and been there for him 100%, because we're not in a normal situation. This isn't just like, oh, he's having a breakdown, like, and we're back at home and after the bar. It's like, this was different, and he really needed me in that moment. And I didn't show up for him. And that really hurts me, because I've showed up for you so much throughout our relationship. Like I really have. And like, that sucks, that's like, it's really difficult to watch, honestly.
I think you said in that moment that you felt violated, and that it was so unfair to you. Why did you feel violated?
From the things that were happening off camera. And if we want to talk about it, like, but there was a lot that you guys are not seeing in the relationship and what was going on.
I was trying to get her out of there. I was trying to use everything I could to,
But you weren't just like, it wasn't just like, we need to get the fuck out of here. It was very unhealthy in terms of the communication and what was going on.
I should have loved myself enough in those moments to just leave. And honestly, like, I think that I let the more emotional, hopeful, romantic, whatever part get the best of me. And I think that I agreed to do this. Like, I agreed to do this, and I do have to take ownership of that. I also went through something, that I honor that Mariah was able to stay stable and sane through it. It being there on my own and feeling the feelings that I was feeling, I wasn't treating myself with the kind of mental clarity and health that I needed to, that I'm, working on now. And I do think that Sandy and I are good mirrors for each other to evolve through separate relationships. And as you said, with the toxicity to it, there was a dynamic in the relationship prior to that. As I said, when we started, she was a very push-pull with me, and kind of like wanted me when she wanted me, but then wanted to do her own thing. And I finally set a boundary around that, but then I gave into the boundary, and it ignited this part of us that was a lot of fun, and a lot of, we had an incredible physical chemistry, and we always had a hell of a lot of laughs together, but we weren't serving each other in that safe place that clearly I was needing in that time.
So I'm curious. I'm going to describe to you my perception of your guys' relationship based off the show we watched. And I'm curious what parts of it you think are accurate.
Yeah.
This is my perception of your
hear
relationship. The show portrays you guys as if throughout the season, it's like you're constantly giving Nick notes on how he's supposed to do this and how he's supposed to this. And like Nick is constantly apologizing to you for what feels like some things may be valid. Some things it's just like, it almost felt like Nick was apologizing because he's like, I think I'm just supposed to apologize. I don't fucking know. But I love this girl. And that's kind of how, that's the vibe that the show portrays you guys
I understand that vibe, but I think that
It's so interesting.
What people don't see is that I was absent moving into this. I wasn't checking in with her.
What do you mean by absent?
Like I was just in my own, I was
like literally absent.
Like
he wouldn't call me, he wouldn't text me unless we were together, even when we were together.
So you just flat out ignoring her?
He couldn't.
I wouldn't say ignoring.
He wasn't present with me, you guys. Yeah. I spent more time with my best friend and her boyfriend.
Paint the picture for me, because like I can be very aloof and I can be very distant, and then I can be on a couch, and I can be like Nick, and like Nick, and like I don't hear her, but eventually now is like, bro. But then there's like, we know couples where like some people literally like ignore their partners and are checking out. Like,
no, it wasn't ever like, I knew it was never, well, actually I didn't know if it was intentional or not. I just was like, I felt like he was pushing me to break up with him because he was not around. And I think he just was in his own head going through his own things. So it was just naturally like there was kind of a disconnect, but I'm very much like, I need somebody in front of me. I'm really big on quality time. I'm big on physical touch. It was like he wasn't physically with me. Like he would go sleep on the couch for like, just because he like needs to move around a lot, you know? And I'm like, or we would do things like with our friends, and he would never, like, he could never make it. He never want to come. So I'd be with my best friend and her boyfriend. And I'm like, where's my boyfriend? You know? So it was actually kind of like an absent boyfriend thing. But
did you think you'd survive the show?
I don't know. I honestly, like, I do think that we were at a really rocky point in our relationship. And I was like, kind of wanting to just give it my all. And that's what happened with me going into the experience with JR, whatnot. A lot of stuff happened like that we don't see with Nick and I. And I almost wanted to just like leave the whole experience. And I was like, I owe it to my relationship to give it my all and be with him. And the thing is, it's like,
we wanted different things. We just wanted different things. I mean, when it comes down to it, we went to Europe the month before we knew we were going to get on the show. I had a friend's wedding that came up. She came with me. She wanted to go to Mykonos. This is something I have to own. Like, I'm really bad at making choices in the moment. I'm not a good planner. I get that. I go kind of like off the cuff. I definitely fly by the seat of my pants. Like, if I'm going to paint, I want to paint all night. Sometimes that takes 2 nights. Sometimes I'm not there during the day. And that is who I am. Like, I have to own that. And that can feel very shitty for a partner, I'm sure. I don't have the same love language as she has. And you know, I was trying to work on the physical touch aspect and get there because it just is not something I naturally do. I think the other type of physical touch for us was intense and wonderful, but I'm just day to day, you know, hand holding and things. I somehow just I never developed that. I never developed that sort of, I guess, rhythm to how I show up. And she wanted to go to Mykonos, which was after that. I felt like Mykonos was too much, overwhelming, but I agreed to it reluctantly, which I shouldn't have done. And then I put her in a state of limbo where basically I knew in my gut that I didn't want to go. But instead of just me being assertive and saying, I don't want to do that, and we're not doing that, and if you want to do that, go, you
decided to go and be a baby?
I didn't go.
No, I mean, that's just a whole thing in itself. But that was literally like the week before we left for the Ultimatum. And we came out and it was like one of our biggest fights. And it was just this whole thing. I'm like in Europe by myself with like my friend and her boyfriend.
So you left her.
I mean, she wasn't by herself. She was
with my friend and her boyfriend. But it's like, I went there because I wanted to be with you. We went to a wedding. Doesn't matter. I don't think that this is like that important, but that was...
Well, I mean, you guys aren't on the same page. There is that.
Yeah, no.
I think that's where it comes down to.
I guess my question for you is,
like, it was really important to me. I just didn't know if it's like.
I thought it was important for you to stay with me.
In your next relationship, Natalie is a bit younger than me, right? And so when we got together, we obviously got together because there was a physical attraction, and then we were compatible. We enjoyed hanging out. When we finally were like, let's do this and date, you know, there was an acknowledgement of our age difference. There was an acknowledgement of ways in which maybe we're not as compatible as we wanted to be. And then there was like a willingness, at least a recognition on both of our parts, but at least I'll just speak for me as a guy who was like, you know, I'm about to date someone who is going to want to and has the right to want to do things I've already done, is going to want to go to places I may not want to go or that I've already been. And I can't just not show up, and I can't just say, go do that. I don't feel like doing it. If I want to be with this person, I have to meet her where she is, and she's going to have to meet me where I'm at. And I'm just curious, like, as you look back on your relationship with Sandy, like, what changes have you made in that department? Because your next girl, I don't, are you still dating that girl, whoever you were dating at the reunion? I'm sure that at some point she's going to want to do something you don't want to do.
We're
and
far more on the same page.
I'm not.
Things. But
I'm
yes,
not. I'm just talking about when you're not, because as compatible as Natalie and I are, there's always going to be moments where we're disconnected, or she wants to do something where I don't want to do, and like, it's easy to make a relationship work when you guys agree.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's when the a couple doesn't agree, and that happens for any couple. I don't care how compatible or how connected you are. At some point, there's moments of disconnection, and how you work through that is kind of how any relationship makes it or breaks it. So
I think there were other factors like involved that made it really difficult to be on the same page or make certain decisions. And I think that's just kind of that was for Europe. That was a big break. And it's not just about lifestyle decisions or Mykonos or whatnot. Like, who gives a fuck, honestly? It's more about the behavior and like how you're showing up versus how you're not showing up. And that's just kind of around
kind of like, we had this weird, I don't want to say role reversal, but I would say that I was far less, like my volume was far lower when it came to, I remember you making a comment at some point, like, is there anything that upsets you? Like, and I think that it wasn't that I wasn't upset. I hadn't gotten to that point where I felt like, I don't know, I didn't feel angry, and I didn't feel that it was serving me. In our relationship, there was a lot of frustration that Sandy didn't feel like she was getting from me, like the emotions and the volume of whatever she was desiring. And I think that Sandy is a fiery person. She's got a lot of like passion and artistry in her own way through life. And I think that just comes down to the fact that like we communicated poorly. When I wanted, she didn't. When she did, I didn't. And we kind of reverberated this really deep connection through how much we love each other as people, but continuing to kind of see that like this probably isn't going to be a forever thing. Mm-hmm. And I was hopeful that was going to shift. And honestly, when this came up, I was like, let's put ourselves in a scenario that really shakes things up, and let's see if we can break through this together and find like a new road together. And it just, I think everyone saw that it went the other direction. That doesn't mean that I need to, I resonate in that negativity anymore. I forgive. We've had like plenty of conversations. I want her to be happy. I hope that she ends up with somebody that she feels, follows the spirit and the goals that she wants in her life. And I think that it's been a really challenging test, but I will say through my process after the show and everything that I've done, she has been immensely supportive, because I recognized that I was using alcohol and coping through numbing skills that were not healthy. And so I did go to check in and see, what I could do for myself to change that behavior, because I never recognized it as something that I really needed to get help with. And it's been hard. It's something that is so socially accepted, and especially on the shows like these where everybody's having a drink and people are, moving it around, like it's everywhere. And it's really hard to take a step back from yourself, especially when you're feeling like shit, and look at that pattern. And I think that the one thing I will say is, no matter what my frustrations were with her, with the show, with the breakup, she was always consistently supportive with me and me, getting to a better place.
There's a lot of decisions you have to make when you have a baby. And the one that I feel the most comfortable and safe making is using Huggies for our daughter, River. The new Huggies Skin Essentials are here. A brand new dermatologist-approved line of diapers, wipes, and pull-ups training pants are all designed with baby's sensitive skin in mind.
Their wipes have 0 harsh ingredients for a great, gentle clean.
The Skin Essentials diapers features the Skin Protect liner, which is what helps take care of the ick and stick that can cause rash.
Their whole diaper helps protect against the top 2 causes of rash by managing moisture and runny mess. Pull-Up Skin Essentials has got your big kid covered too, with a training pant that is ultra soft and breathable, to help protect sensitive skin throughout potty training. Learn more at Huggies.com. Once again, head to Huggies.com to learn more. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. Can you name every single subscription you have? Over 74% of people have subscriptions they have forgotten about. That's crazy. That's a lot. With Rocket Money, you don't have to remember every subscription because you can see them all laid out right before you with the help of Rocket Money. See all your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. And for any that you don't want, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with just a few taps. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clearer view of your expenses across all your accounts. Plus, you can easily create a personalized budget with customized categories to keep your spending on track. See your monthly spending trends in categories to know exactly where your money is going. Rocket Money will even negotiate and lower your bills for you, sometimes by up to 20%. That's crazy. They automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you. They'll even deal with customer service. What more are you looking for? Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Myself, I have saved over $1,000. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/VIALL today. That's rocketmoney.com/VIALL. rocketmoney.com/VIALL. Do you have any regrets on how you handled JR?
No, I don't care about. I mean, JR's like JR. If I was JR, I'd be into her too.
I don't think he
Like-
handled JR in any wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, I apologize.
I
for
was
J-
just more like, I wouldn't
Oh,
have
you mean
apologized to him.
was too over? Yeah.
I would have
Well, you
pushed
didn't get-
back a little bit more.
Yeah, they didn't get the whole combo. I mean, there was definitely.
Okay.
I'm sorry for showing up, but dude, what the fuck are you talking about? This is my girlfriend.
Yeah, it was
And in
just more like
fact-
you seemed
in
way
fact,
too okay with him.
Scotty,
talking
which
about-
I wasn't, and I also was at
Which
the
that
point
was just weird.
that wasn't. I was
Okay.
not
It was
okay,
very
and I
weird.
also walked into Scotty and JR having a conversation about Sandy that wasn't about me.
Mm.
And I was just like, okay, like, I'm not sure at what point. And I felt like I was living in a kaleidoscope at that point. Like, this is my person. This is the person that I came to the show with. She's the person I know the best. And people are having conversations with her and about her as if they
As if,
are
yeah.
involved with her more than I am. And
Mm.
that was, at that point, Caleb and I, Caleb stepped in. I said, I got this. Like, and that's when I kind of started to go towards JR and say, well, listen, I know that Sandy's telling me something. Why don't you tell me what's going on? Why don't you tell me the truth? If this is something that I need to be worried about, or I'm just making this all up in my fucking head and I'm losing it for nothing, like, come correct. And also, what's your stance and what are you going through with Zaina? Because I know a lot of conversations going on about me and Sandy, but where are you with Zaina? And like, where is that for your relationship? That conversation's obviously not
Mhm.
captured, but
Yeah.
I never had a specific issue, nor do I, with JR as a human. If I was,
No, he's way too cocky. I mean, this man thinks he like
I don't
is
know him.
God.
I don't know.
He,
Yeah, you're
I mean,
very
he's like
gracious.
everyone is scared of me. Everyone wants to be me. Everyone wants to date me. Which
I can't speak to. I honestly,
What do you?
That's just what
How
it
do
looks
you
like on
see
TV.
JR after watching it back?
I mean, look, JR has this like exterior shell, and I kind of talk about it. I mean, I wish they showed more. I was like really trying to help him like break that down because him and I actually had a lot of conversation around his past, his childhood, his upbringing, his divorce, like, things that were deep rooted for both of us. And so I feel like I really saw kind of like what's underneath all of there deep down. And I was kind of like vouching for that, but nobody sees it because that's not what he leads with, obviously. And even
I mean,
with other
honestly, even if I
people.
did see that, I don't
Right.
honestly I don't have much patience for the guy or whoever. But maybe I'm more critical of men in that department. But like, I don't care about the guy who can open up to the girl he's trying not to hook up with or
open up,
and be
you mean,
soft or
yeah.
whatever, and then be an asshole to everyone else.
Right.
That doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, look, I cannot speak for JR. That's his thing.
No,
but
I'm not asking you. I'm
I
just curious if
do-
you see him differently, and were you
Yeah, I
surprised
do.
by
So
things
I
you
think
watched
I
back?
think in the
Yeah.
beginning, honestly, I'll be real, like I couldn't see that because we're not interacting with the other castmates, you guys. Like
Yeah.
we're not allowed to interact with other castmates. You are literally just with this person. And so I didn't really see any of that stuff until a little bit later. And as more time went on and his interactions with you and whatnot, and it, it would bother me because I'm a very like social person. I'm very big on, making friends and whatnot and just like being kind to other people. I know it might not look like that, but I really am. And I was like, why are you like you know, why do you have a problem with everybody? Like, that's just not how I am. But again, we're in this like weird experiment. You're matched up with somebody. You gotta pick from one of 5 people there, and once you're in there, you're in it. And it's like there's a lot more that you guys just aren't seeing, obviously, in terms of like what we're working on, the conversations that we're having, you know, how we're trying to like show up for each other so that we can show up better for our partners and challenge each other on certain things. Like I understand that like doesn't make any sense because you quite literally see 0 of that. So like why would anybody think that? But with these really intense experiences, there's a reason it's 2 months because you want to get the whole experience. And it's more than just what we're seeing, obviously. There's, you know, because at the end of it, it's like there is a decision for an engagement or whatnot. And you really are kind of going through like a trial marriage. I don't know. I do see things differently. Just like having over a year to kind of like process everything, having a step away from it, and then now like seeing it as a mirror for sure.
I mean, I think especially at the reunion when they showed all of his clips of him continuing to disrespect Zaina when it wasn't even like
before he even got to you
before
guys
even
coupling up.
before it was even like he had picked his trial wife. It was
right.
you know, telling Arya he was going to get her pregnant and like
right.
you know, I feel like all of those things, even the hall pass slip. I mean,
so I mean, I'll be honest, like there were a lot of things that I didn't see when I was in there and I'm just like fun and flirty and like, oh, whatever. Me and Nick go into it, we're like, we're having fun, whatever. And then it's like, and I realized that there was definitely a lot of things where like I just shouldn't have even like gone along with it, or I honestly like I can see it in my face. I know I remember certain moments where like I'm like, okay, can we not say that right now? Can we not talk about that? Like I just would get a little bit uncomfortable, but it's like then we would instantly talk about, you know, spirituality or our families. And it was like, okay, cool. Obviously that's not shown, but you know, there were a lot of those comments that were just inappropriate. And there was just too much of it, honestly. And it just was like, okay, enough. And yeah, I mean, and then seeing some of the things that he was saying, honestly, about me, like that I had no idea about, were really upsetting to me. And I just was like,
upsetting?
you know, the whole like wants to be with a white girl, no strings attached comment. Like that was, I just was like, wow, like that's really interesting because that's not how I was perceiving like our connection or whatnot. And so, yeah, that was upsetting to see. And had I known certain bits of information, maybe I would have done things differently. But
you did mention feeling unseen in your relationship with Nick. I think that's unfortunately a very relatable feeling.
Yeah.
So I am sorry that you felt that way in that relationship. You did at the changeover use some big words to describe Nick. Tormented, attacked.
Yeah.
I think we all are just confused. Like, I think can we just
there's
have
like,
some
you're
content?
like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like why did you feel that way?
I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened in our relationship and through the process where Nick's emotional like volatility or instability genuinely just crossed way too many boundaries. And I think at the changeover, it was right after a big tipping point, and you can see it. I am so upset. I am clearly so mad. Nick is apologizing to me. We're like, what the fuck is this about though? You know, it doesn't really make any sense because why would he be apologizing to her? She's just going through this trial marriage with Jared. He's alone, but there's just a lot more that we can't see. And honestly, it's relationship stuff, and there's things that Nick has struggled with. I think more than
it's just basically, you know, I was drinking and I was texting like crazy and calling like crazy.
Could you give us some context? Because
it's
I
think she felt like I was doing everything in my power to ruin the experience for her.
Not really though.
I think that's the disconnect is like you clearly didn't handle it well, but I don't know if anyone would in that position. And I think it's just more like,
but I can also like, and I've gotten to this point now where like, if the relationship was solid, we would have come together. You know, I think she would have been less upset with the past. She would have been less upset with the contact. She, I think, was upset at me leading into the show, which bled into the show. And then when I showed up like, oh my God, I need you. And she's like, well, dude, you haven't been here.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense if you were that if you were that absent leading
Yeah, I
up
mean,
to
I
your
was-
relationship,
Yeah, and I
like
think
if you were, I mean, like, were you giving like, I'm an artist, I need to paint all night, and I can't talk, like,
Yeah, I don't even care about that though. I support his art. Like I'm his biggest supporter of his art. No, it doesn't
I don't
seem
doubt
way.
that, but again,
But
like, again, or if you're just
that's
like
it's running away from
having all
me
these very
and
rigid, like, I'm available, I'm not available, I'm available, I'm not available. Was it like
yeah,
that?
there's a lot of instability with it, and it takes a toll.
Why'd you stay in that relationship? It was so hard.
I don't know. I really loved him. Like I really did. Like it's like a weird, hard thing. I mean, I still love him. I care about him
But why were you
tremendously.
in love with
I
him
was in
so
love
much
with him
that you'd
because
want to put up
he
with?
showed me like he opened up my eyes to life. I really like he really did. He changed my world in like the best way. And like literally gonna get emotional, but he like we just had actually some of the most beautiful moments I've ever had in my life. And I don't know, it's like we did actually have a really beautiful relationship. He opened up my perspective. He opened up my heart. Like I actually grew as a human from loving him. Most people grow through heartbreaks. Like I grew through loving him because there were a lot of challenges in there and like there are things that he struggles with in himself and that like it I really showed up for him a lot of ways and I don't know, we just had the best moments together and I I really yeah, we have a very deep like soul connection and he's just one of the most amazing humans that I've met and it's like and it's hard because it doesn't mean that he's the right life partner for me or that we're the right life partners for each other. But I've never had a relationship where it's like we were always so understanding of one another and so like free and just trusting and it was healthy in a lot of ways until it wasn't, you know? He really like, he changed my world, like, he really has.
What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I mean, I'm a lot of gratitude for the words, and I think that I don't choose people as partners that I think are not going to be something that I mean, I do lead with my heart and my soul. I feel like, and I felt like there was that soul connection from the beginning. I did feel there was a depth and an energy to her and a spirituality that was like, so it resonates through me when I'm with her. But our lifestyles were challenging for me to feel safe. And
What do you mean by that?
she has a big social life. She's, she goes out a lot, and I never felt like I was she was gonna be unfaithful or anything to that degree, but I didn't feel like I was.
You felt uncomfortable maybe with the environment she was putting
Yeah, I
herself
just
in?
felt I felt like it was kind of like a vacant space that I had, already seen, and I was curious what was filling her cup in that
Sure.
area. But I am different, and like that does fill her cup. And I think that I have some social anxiety, and she has social integration, and she's like very comfortable walking into a room with a ton of people, and I am more comfortable in my studio or whatever it may
Totally.
have. It's like, and so when it comes up, like, let you go ahead, go do your thing, it's because it didn't feel like I needed to be a part of it, but I did feel like it is more a part of her life than somebody that I want to be with. And I think that it felt like I was maybe just wanting a slower pace for things.
Yeah, that makes
And,
sense.
I think that I was trying to organically kind of massage her that way. Like, look at how beautiful, like, us, a house by the lake, and like chill and this. And she's like, yeah, but what about this place in LA? And I'm like, it's just, we would laugh about it. And then the conversation would kind of end, and we both kind of like, it wouldn't really come to a solution whatsoever. And that was just, I am not in that scene. And it's not to take away from anything but like what I've been working on also is like my people pleasing thing, right? So like I'll just say, oh, this is okay, and I'm okay with it, when maybe I'm really not so okay with it, and I'm not asking for what I need in a relationship, and like not really putting myself first in certain ways, and then resenting or like quietly resenting through it, and not, just like actively being a part of it. So, it's really wonderful and magical to feel what she just said. I think that I have had a hard time through this, like knowing that. I knew it in my gut, but like, I don't think that description came within our relationship often. I think you would probably agree.
What?
What do you mean?
You describing how much you love me and why you love me. And
Yeah, I mean, words of affirmation is not my thing. It's really challenging for me to like really speak up for myself sometimes and say what's on my heart and how I feel about certain things. Whereas it's really easy for you to do that, and we do have different ways that we
I
kind of
was
show our love and
definitely
affection.
craving that, like very
Yeah.
much from her. And then we'd
Guys.
have these breakthroughs.
You guys just seem completely not compatible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
At the reunion, they brought out Vanessa and Dave, which I completely could have done without.
No, you're right.
I mean, it was
Unnecessary.
very unnecessary. But Vanessa felt like it was her place, which I have zero respect for when someone, especially someone who you knew for about 2 days maybe,
Yeah.
tells you it's time for you to deal with your trauma and to
Right.
go to therapy and to get
That
the
was
help
wild.
that you need. Because it's like, that's probably not going to help, outing that on a national television show. Sandy, how was that for you to hear someone knowing, I imagine, some of the stuff that he's been through in his life,
Yeah.
kind of air out, that dirty laundry on TV?
I mean, I was shocked. I couldn't believe like that. I couldn't believe that she was saying the things that she was because I had no idea that was her experience or that she even uncovered that. What she was saying, it was like, I felt like she was speaking for me almost. Like it was like she was, articulating a lot of things that I very deeply was kind of going through in the relationship that I had been struggling with for years that I haven't really been able to like verbalize or talk about.
Right, because I was talking about you the whole time.
Right.
Of course, you could give like that's
No,
that's the
but
thing.
Nick,
It's
but
like,
but
of
about
course she knows that that's what your experience is because I'm telling her
because
how
you
much
told
I
her
fucked
that
up.
stuff.
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
I mean, I don't know.
I miss her.
I
I
didn't know
can't believe this is happening. How why would
No, but
like,
about it just was really surprising. I had no idea that like I'm like, how do you
Vanessa
know
and I
all
were
of this
also
stuff?
communicating after like friends. I thought Vanessa was a friend. She's not. It's obvious.
But I do want to
That
say
was some
like
15-minute bullshit right there.
She should have stayed on her couch.
I do want to say like that it was like a weird thing where I'm like she was almost kind of speaking certain things that I had felt, but I had never really spoken up about. It was also kind of weird because I'm like, wait, are you his ex-girlfriend or am I? Like so it was a little bit interesting where I haven't really felt comfortable sharing certain things or talking about certain things. And she did. I don't know. And I think that in some ways, like it kind of was describing some things that I had been going through with you.
Because I described everything I was going through with you to her, which she
Okay.
knew. Otherwise,
Yeah,
how would she know? I mean,
I just, it was, yeah, it was
She
really
was-
interesting that but
There seems to be something that has happened that y'all don't want to talk about or you aren't ready to share.
I mean, I think it's very clear I was using alcohol and not on the show, but other things prior to and after, and I was numbing. And I have realized that there's something there and that I need to take care of that. And that I was,
And not to diminish that, because obviously that substance abuse of any kind, but like, are we talking like you got drunk and text too much, or did you like say something like you really shouldn't have fucking said, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I guess that's the.
I think Sandy
you
was
guys
at-
keep referencing you drank, and we get it. Like you
Yeah.
I think
medicated.
it's
was going
not,
through a hard time. You weren't your best self when you were drunk.
I think
No
it's
one is.
more than just through the experience. Like, I think there's been patterns in the relationship, and a lot of people can probably relate to that struggle with, any sort of substance abuse. There's textbook patterns and things that happen within yourself and around with the people that you love in relationships, and it's really, really hard to navigate.
and it's also hard to be in that from her end and not know necessarily how to support it because her relationship with it was different. And,
Very
and
different.
she drinks and parties in the way that she parties, and I took it to another place. And I was, I think the numbing thing, it's like just to be with yourself and be with your emotions sober and like let that be what it is has been a challenge for me. And I think that created a bit of the way I would check out or the way I would speak to her felt like I don't know. I mean, it's your experience. I think my version of it I was looking for comfort that I needed to work through, but I was looking for her to answer the question when I need to answer it within myself. Trying to pour all of this onto her and say, can you figure out how to figure me out? Right. And like, that's a lot for somebody who's also like not, and I'm not saying that she fell out of love with me at a certain point, but I think that it becomes, I've looked at myself through this and I'm not attracted to what I see. So I can't imagine that being a safe place or something that she wanted to continue in. And like, I think as a friend and as a human, we were always supportive, but I think that she was recognizing that that wasn't a space that she wanted to be in.
I think numbing pain is very relatable. I've been through a lot of trauma myself, and the way that I numbed it was just lying to myself, and I'd be like, that actually never happened to me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know who that was, but it wasn't me. How did you get out of looking at alcohol and other things to numb that and to get to where you are now?
I mean, it's every day is a process. I've had a couple, times where I've gone back. I did go to recovery. It was traditional, inpatient, and I felt a lot of community there, which was one of my biggest takeaways, that I do tend to isolate when I feel badly. And that, not being vulnerable to need a support system when I needed it. And again, just looking at Sandy to kind of be the guiding light for what I needed to explore with other people who have been through a similar situation.
Mhm.
And I tried, like, I really gave it my all with trying to like be there for you and show up for you. I would drop everything and go make sure he was okay if he was struggling with certain things, or
What about like on a day-to-day basis?
I mean,
She's
countless conversations and like
yeah.
I don't know. It's like, how do you like really show up and support somebody that's going through,
I guess just in general, how did you guys show up for each other in the relationship when it was good?
I mean, we've had a lot of really, really good conversations around really heavy, hard topics. And, I think just showing him the love and compassion when he was broken and like,
So you gave him a safe
I
space to
gave
be
him a safe
vulnerable and to
space,
be
of
open.
course. Yeah. We were like,
Yeah.
That's
I,
huge.
I very much, and I never like judged him for any of it. Like, I was very much a safe space for you to open up and share all that stuff with me. And I wanted to help. Like, that was naturally like what we want to do as women, is just like, have solutions and help and like nurture. And I was very, very nurturing to him through all of this. And, but also in turn, it was hurting me too, because it's like, I have certain boundaries within myself, and thing after thing would happen, and then it's like I'm disrespecting my own boundary by staying in it. But
I
it's
would lie.
just
I would lie about using
yeah,
quite
like
often. And like
lie a
that's I
lot.
mean,
Like,
I think it's like,
it's a textbook thing, of course.
and
but
it's shame, and it's guilt, and
Mhm.
it's there's a
Was it
lot.
more than alcohol?
Yeah. Yep. I
Yeah.
mean, I have a tendency. I've explored a lot of psychedelic therapy. Unfortunately, there's something in the psychedelic therapy world that is also a bit of a two-headed snake, and I got pretty into that. So
Okay.
yeah.
You still feel ashamed of that right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the shame is in the lies, right? Because she did come to me countless times and say, just as long as you tell me the truth about what's going on, I can be there for you. But what happens is you feel so guilty about what you're doing that you feel like the rejection's the next thing to come, not
Mhm.
support.
Mm.
It's not sexy to be involved with something that pulls you in a direction every time. And like, that's I think as I look back and recognize like the escapism in it, it's like, what am I not seeing in myself that I need to go chase this feeling through, K or booze, and they're disassociatives, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to disassociate, especially when it comes to art. Like, sometimes it's easier to just disassociate and be free with that. I don't think drugs and alcohol are any stranger to people who are artists or creative. There's something in that. It's challenging. It is challenging to be sober and feel okay. But
Sandy, did you feel like he chose the drugs and alcohol over you?
Yeah, of course. Every time.
When Nick was talking about like the difference in lifestyles and the going out, are you single now? Are you?
Yeah.
You are. Yeah, I guess I'm curious what you think about what he was saying in terms of like just the different lifestyles or where you guys were in your life, and I guess more now. Are you like in more in your single era because now you want to go out more and maybe like that kind of going out lifestyles is more conducive to being single, or is it more like you want to find someone who also wants to go out?
I think just like my social life has always been a big thing for me. I'm genuinely love human interaction and making new friends. Like
Yeah, no, love that
I
too.
just am. I'm a social butterfly. And so for me, going out is really just having fun, going out and being with people, dancing with your girlfriends, whatnot. Like it energizes me. I'm an extrovert,
Totally.
So
But how do you draw the line between being an extrovert and loving the social aspect, going out, hanging with your girls versus also being like,
in a relationship?
I'm in a
Present
relationship
partner.
and like there's going out and there's like being respectful
So
that
I
I'm in a
think for
relationship.
me is having a partner that also enjoys to go out, to like that we can go socialize with couples and and I don't need to go out all the time, you guys. Like I genuinely, I'm either a homebody or I'm out. Like it's kind of like one or the other for me. But something that's really big for me that I've realized just through
what's in
relationships.
between?
I don't know.
Hmm.
I think what's really big for me that I've realized throughout through my relationships is I do want a partner that um wants a similar thing, it's and they have a social life too that they want to be around and it's not like a shameful thing. It's not something that I need to like completely get rid of. I don't think being in a relationship means like, oh, well, that's it. Like we're going to wipe away like our social life. That's, you know what I mean? There's a way to do it. Yeah.
We're very social. I guess it just
Yeah.
depends on what
It
that
depends
social
on what
aspect means,
totally.
you
Like, do I
know?
need to go to the club with my man? I mean, maybe sometimes if we want to, but not all the time. I think there's just a level of socialization, and with Nick, for instance, like he's way more introverted,
Well,
and
I just have like an anti-club direction.
but you wouldn't even
more.
want to go out to dinners, Nick. Like you wouldn't want to go out to dinners. You wouldn't want to go hang out with friends. So it's like we really had the best time, like ourselves, hanging out on the couch and having our own like dance party and whatever. But it's just that's a lifestyle thing when it's a life partner that you do kind of want to be aligned with, because if not, that's a really big difference. But yeah, it's not just about like, oh, I want to be single because I want to go out. No, I'll be single until I find the right person.
I have to ask this. Did you have sex with JR?
No, absolutely not. I will set the record straight right here, right now. Literally nothing happened past a kiss with me and JR. I know it looks very bad. It looks a lot worse than it was. JR was a bit performative when it came to certain things. That's my wife.
Mhm.
Oh, like, hey girl, what you doing? Like, hey babe. He was never calling me babe when the cameras weren't around. Ever. Like
He was performing.
a little bit, yeah. He would never call, like it was not the vibe. That's why it's really difficult for me to like see, because I'm like, damn, like it really got, it really looks a certain way. But and
didn't
we were
that bother you that
flirty.
he was playing it up for the camera?
You know what? Honestly, I'm very new here. We're just like normal humans that just got thrown into this, and then there's cameras around. You don't really know how it's all gonna look.
Right.
And, we kind of were like, okay, like it's my trial hubby, it's my trial wife, whatnot, and like really playing into it. But, there were certain things that he was playing up. And the guys' night, for instance, with him like almost insinuating that like we were sleeping together.
Yeah, it was
like,
Nick's
it's like,
question, are you sleeping together?
right,
And
and
he
I
said, in the same bed.
so I don't know what really happened because I wasn't there, but obviously there's editing and whatnot, and it's like, oh, cliffhanger. But JR had told me specifically that he was kind of leaving it open-ended to be like, ooh, and I was like, why the fuck would you do that? Like, that's not something to play around with here. I'm over here in every interview and every conversation being like, we're not sleeping together, we're not hooking up, trying to lay that down because I owe that to myself. And I think he was kind of giving into like the drama of it a little bit. And it really fucked me over. Like, I don't know. That sucks. That's really hard for me because we didn't. Like, genuinely, you guys, what you see is honestly worse than what it was. And that is the extent of it, period. And yeah, it's hard. Like,
Nick, you seemed very uncomfortable.
A lot of
during
people
that.
are
As he
talking.
should
A lot of
be.
people are
Like,
talking about it, and it's a lot of like two things. If I don't think it happened, regardless if it did or it didn't. I don't think it happened, but the perception is that it did. That was my perception. After speaking with Sandy, I believe her. I do.
Yeah.
I trust her. I don't really. We're not at a point in life where like there's anything but
She would
support.
have a reason.
Yeah,
to
like
lie to you.
Like, trust me, you guys. Like
it's the relationship is like there is no more of that. It's at this point like radical honesty with each other about how we can best, figure out what we did wrong in the relationship and move forward. I'm in a new relationship. It's not that part, that ship has sailed. But I think that in the experience, I felt like there was a really heavy connection, regardless of what that meant, whether it's holding each other at night or loving on each other or being intimate or being physical or even emotional. All of that was unfolding. And when I watched it, I was like, whoa, this looks pretty.
I was too. I was like,
real.
what the fuck?
And regardless of if they had sex or not, to me, it looked very real. I do believe that it was a real connection. And I also believe that it would have been, I think everything happens for the right reason, right? Like had I not spun and like I was completely zen and we got back together and like perhaps did end up with an engagement. And then I saw that, like, then it would have been a whole nother mess of stuff to have to deal with. And, I think everything happens for the right, weird, twisted reason in some way. And like, I did feel that we were separating as a couple. And I do think that they both leaned into the experience pretty quickly and in a way that wasn't very settling for myself to observe. But I do not believe that they had sex.
With that being
we
said,
didn't do anything like at all.
Sandy, I do apologize for, we've recapped the show from the start, and I have said several times that I thought that y'all fucked. Obviously, I haven't spoken to you in person.
Right,
so,
course.
For you to look at me and say, like, no, it did not happen. I do believe you. And I can imagine how frustrating and how fucking annoying it must be for everyone in the world to say you fucked a man, you didn't.
Right. Yep.
So I am sorry for my part.
No, that's okay. Look, here's the thing. I don't really take this type of stuff personally because we're on a TV show. This is what we signed up for. We're putting our life, our relationship out there for people to judge. I'm a big fan of reality shows. I would be like, oh, damn. So when I'm seeing this, I don't blame anybody for thinking that. Of course. But it's just frustrating because it's like, that's not actually what happened. That's not really. But, I think that's on us for being a bit too, leaning into the flirtiness and kind of leading with that when really that was this in terms of our trial marriage and our connection. It was mostly all mental and emotional, truly. And it sucks that you don't get to see any of those conversations because people really are just you guys were just here to mess around and whatnot. And it's hurtful for me because I really worked on a lot while we were in there. And I challenged JR to work on a lot too. And that's where you hear me say, oh, I'm trying to train you. Obviously that wasn't the right wording in that moment, but I was trying to challenge JR so much to show up better for either Zaina or any other person that he's with. We dug into his childhood, his marriage, and just his mindset of things that he was holding on to. And I was trying to I got into arguments with him over these things. I'm like, you better be making Zaina breakfast every morning because he would make breakfast every damn morning and was very much wanting to just have it for himself. And so there was just a lot of different things that I was challenging him to, think about the partnership over just yourself and the social media conversation, which we don't really see much of. But
I do also think JR is more at fault of this perception of the two of you than you are. I think if you were placed with someone else, I don't think people would be speculating on any of that.
No, it was clear that he wanted people to think that, and he wanted the people to think that he had a big old,
Yeah.
He was peacocking the whole time. Nick, I'm curious. Final question. I know we have to wrap up. What did you learn from that tattoo?
Fortune favors the bold.
To keep getting more tattoos. But
serious. Honestly, all jokes aside, that's a wild story.
It is wild, and there's no way I knew he had it. He has it's tiny on his hands.
That was crazy.
I'm a big believer that we learn. I don't believe everything happens for a reason. I think shit happens, and I think we're either willing to learn from it or we're not.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from that? Because I hope you learned something.
To read the stencil when he puts it on.
Well, it was. I wanted both. So this is not it was not some
so
random
at some point
mistake.
you're gonna get the other one.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not. I'm either
really?
gonna
You wanted Fortune favors the bold.
I was either gonna get Fortune favors the bold or Love
vibe.
Conquers All, and then I was in there super emo. I'm like, fucking love conquers all. Let's do it. Like I'll show up. And then
Yeah.
I had given him 2 stencils. I think I slept maybe 20 minutes prior to that. I think you can see in my eyes, I was pretty out of it, but also not the best time to get a tattoo, but I have more. I'm going to get more. Like it doesn't, but I do think that the right tattoo was put on my body.
Maybe the lesson is don't get like a generic saying.
Yeah, literally.
Like
Nick also has
It's coming
enjoy. No,
from him. He's
Nick
an
also
artist,
has enjoy the ride backwards on his chest so
Yeah,
that it
because
reads
I
when
wanted
he
it.
looks in the mirror.
because
No,
it's me. You know
you
what?
do?
No else who has that tattoo? Nobody.
Well, you haven't seen everyone in the world
Right.
naked.
I don't. Anyways,
Like,
That's
okay,
so
Marquis
funny.
Diamond.
why are you coming at me right now?
no. I'm just saying. You're coming at him.
He got the same tattoo as his arch rival on accident. You know, I'm just.
I
saying,
mean,
maybe.
I didn't know he had it, but he's also not my arch rival.
I'm just fucking with
I
you.
think it's like, I think anybody would have been into Sandy that was going to date her. And
Yeah, I think he gets way too much fucking credit than
Like,
he deserves.
I think that I was a little concerned about the authenticity from the beginning, and I did express that to her.
With him or
Yeah, I felt like I was, again, part of me was protective, and I didn't think that it was like necessarily, I don't know, just didn't feel right. Something felt off. But I don't have, I think there's a lot in this show that's like, people are experiencing this, people are experiencing that, and then we're seeing clips, and then people are saying this, people are saying there's a lot of telephone going on, and then there's the humans that are experiencing, trying to figure out if they want to stay together for the rest of their lives. And,
Well, I think we definitely want to thank you both for being so vulnerable and so open, and especially you, Nick, for sharing some of things that you went through and experienced. And I know that probably wasn't easy. So thank you for doing that. I'm sure it's going to help a
just
lot of people.
sitting on this couch together. Props to both of you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it says a lot about like our relationship and just like, the love and respect that we have for each other as humans. It was a really crazy thing that we went through, and I feel like it kind of brought out the worst in all of it. But like for us to be able to come together and do this, I mean, I think it says a lot.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. I wish you both nothing but the best. I really do. It's been fun getting to know the people, and it was very fun to watch.
Sorry.
It was, if nothing else.
You did make
You're
good
welcome,
TV.
guys.
You delivered. Yeah. No,
Happy
listen,
holidays.
I'm like, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mrs.
Yeah.
Claus.
Your
Like,
backs, your backs
Santa.
are,
gift
should
that
be
just
sure.
keeps on
Sure.
I need a
Carrying-
massage because my back
Yeah, you guys did carry the
hurts
season.
from
So
carrying this.
did.
Yeah.
there is
Mhm.
that.
It hurts.
Thank you guys for listening. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, guys.
Bye. Hey guys, if you loved what you listened to, make sure you hit that subscribe button below. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.